Welcome to EPG Pathashala. My name is Glial. I am on the faculty of Department of Linguistics at Osmania University, Hyderabad. This is relates to course 10 of psychoneurolinguistics. Today's lecture is in the neurolinguistics part of this course, module 17 on nervous system. The objective of today's lecture is to familiarize you with important concepts pertaining to human nervous system. I will offer a brief account of the role of central nervous system and peripheral nervous system structures. You are advised to consult the e-text and additional readings given there for more comprehensive information on the points that I am touching in today's lecture. Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is made up of brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is made up of 31 pairs of spinal nerves and 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Central nervous system primarily processes information and coordinates operations in the rest of the body. The peripheral nervous system's function is to carry signals from the brain to the body as well as body to the brain. So basically, peripheral nervous system implements the decisions made by the central nervous system by contacting different parts of the body to carry out specific functions. And of course, the function we are going to concentrate is on speech and language, but one is also talking about running and moving and writing and reading and various functions. The figure you see on the screen illustrates the structure of neuron, which is the basic unit of nervous system. The neuron has a nucleus and a cell body. It contains, nucleus and cell body has DNA, which is the genetic blueprint that regulates all cellular activities of the nervous system. The branch-like structures are called dendrites, and they bring information into the cell body. The tube-like long structure is axon. It carries information away from cell body into the next neuron. The axon is covered with myelin sheath, which helps in conduction of the neural impulses. The place where axon and dendrite meet is called synapse. It is at the level of synapse where neurochemical information gets exchanged. And so let's look at this process of exchange of neurochemical information where two neurons meet at the level of synapse. So this is a picture of a synapse. Look at the picture on the screen. You see the axon, and it is like a huge head of the axon. It's filled with neurochemical information, mitochondria, and there is a gap between the axon's head and the receptor site. So this is where the exchange of neurochemicals is taking place. When does this take place? I will just, in a minute, I will explain about what is firing of a neuron and what is traveling of a neural impulse. But synapse is where neurochemical exchange takes place. For every neuron, there are between about 1000 to 10,000 synapses. What are different types of neurons? There are sensory neurons which are present in the skin, muscles, joints, organs. They pick up information about pressure, temperature, pain. So these are all sensory neurons. Then you have motor neurons, which are present in the muscles of the heart, the diaphragm, intestine, bladder, glands. These neurons aid movement of the muscles. And then you have third type of neurons called interneurons, which connect sensory and motor neurons. These are present in the brain also. Okay, central nervous system, many parts of central nervous system, especially brain. Now neurons themselves are held together by what are known as glial cells, like gluey substance. Glial cells are like gluey substances which holds the neurons together. They serve as buffers between brain's blood vessels and neurons, providing nourishment to the nerve cells. They also separate each nerve cell from the other cell. I have already pointed out to you in the earlier picture that there is a myelin sheath covering the axon. This coating, myelin sheath, it develops gradually, even after birth. and the presence and maturation of this myelin sheath is what determines the rate of conduction of the nerve impulse. Since glial cells are sensitive to electrical signals, they enhance the efficient transmission of the nerve impulses. So, how exactly neurons transmit information? When you are just lying down, there is no activity, you are closing your eyes, there is nothing you are at resting state, there is the electrical activity within a neuron is about minus 70 millivolts. Now suppose there is an external stimulus, somebody pinches you or some flashlight you see, some stimulus is there, then there is a change in the electrical activity. From minus 70 it might go to minus 90. So in response to external stimulus, neuron fires and it generates what is known as action potential, AP. So resting potential is minus 70 millivolts. Suppose it becomes more negative, minus 90, that process is called depolarization. Then eventually it becomes positive, and that is called repolarization. So series of depolarizations and repolarizations is what is when you say neural impulse is transmitted, it is this changing electrical signals which pass through the axon from one neuron to another neuron. The axon is ready to carry the next impulse within 1,000th of a second, that fast. Now I have said the peripheral nervous system is made up of cranial nerves, and I said there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves which pass through muscles and connect the brain to the head and neck region. With respect to function of cranial nerves, there are three major functions. There are, out of these 12 cranial nerves, some of them are purely sensory. Say for instance olfactory, carry the sense of smell, optic and carries the the visual information, auditory takes the auditory information to the brain. These are all sensory cranial nerves. Purely motor cranial nerves help in movement. So oculomotor is involved in moving the eyeballs when you are reading. Hypoglossal is involved in moving the tongue. So these are purely motor. The third type of cranial nerves have mixed function. That means they are both sensory as well as motor. Example is facial. The facial nerve which comes to your face area, jaw, it takes sensory information. At the same time, it also brings commands to move the jaw up and down. Similarly, vagus. Vagus comes all the way from brain to the vocal cords. So it can carry information from the vocal cords. It can also tell the vocal cords to move. So it is sensory and motor. In the e-text, there is all the 12 cranial nerves are listed. Their functions are indicated. Consult that table in the e-text. Now I will only show you one picture of the brain turned back to show you where the 12 cranial nerves originate. Look at the picture. The two hemispheres are shown ulta from the back, and the cranial nerves, if you pay attention, the cranial nerve number 1 is olfactory, it's right on top, whereas cranial nerve number 12 is relatively at the bottom towards the end, and so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you trace, you spend some time studying this figure to see the origin of the cranial nerve, and then you see the various organs where information is being carried either from the brain to the organ, or organ is sending information from the body to the brain. So each of them, you can see the eye there, where oculomotor, trochlear, abducent, these are all connected to eye, oculomotor. So there are 4 cranial nerves subserving eye movements or taking visual information to the brain. So you study this picture to understand the function of the cranial nerves, at little later when you are studying on your own. Let's move on to spinal nerves. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. there are 8 cervical, right, just when the brain stops on your neck area, you have 8 cervical and then followed after the cervical vertebra are over, you have 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral and 1 coccygeal, the last one. Coming out of the vertebral column on your back, they connect, these spinal nerves connect the brain to the rest of the body. The spinal nerves carry information from peripheral receptors like pain, temperature, touch, pressure to the central nervous system and transmit motor information from central nervous system to the muscles. You can see in the picture on the screen all the 31 pairs of spinal nerves. The first top red area is the cervical portion of the spinal cord, thoracic is the yellow area, lumbar is the green area, sacral is the blue area, and their function is also indicated, and numbers are given on the left side. Study this figure to understand the various spinal nerves. So, this module is about nervous system, and I have explained to you about the mainly about the brain and spinal cord making up the central nervous system, and cranial nerves and spinal nerves making up the peripheral nervous system. To summarize this lecture, central nervous system, I have pointed out, is made up of brain and spinal cord. Individual structures of the brain are explained in greater detail than the spinal cord. I have shown the spinal column, but spinal cord does not play a direct role in language, and therefore we did not go into details of spinal cord. But because the focus is on nervous system, I spent some time explaining to you about neuron and what makes up neuron, the cell body, the dendrites, the axon, and how information is given to the cell body through dendrites, and how information is taken away to the next neuron through axon. That axon is covered with myelin sheath. Myelin sheath enhances the conduction rate, and neural impulses travel through axon basically are they are called action potentials, which is change in the resting state in the neuron. The electrical activity changes, polarization, depolarization. A series of these polarization, depolarizations are what are called nerve impulses, and they travel very fast in the nervous system. We talked about such information from the brain is brought down to the speech, language and hearing organs in the head and neck area through cranial nerves, 12 pairs of cranial nerves, and brain is connected to the rest of the body through 31 pairs of spinal nerves. We did not go into details of spinal nerves because cranial nerves are what are more important for speech, language and hearing, and that is what I have explained in this module. Consult the e-text if you have any doubts. Thank you.